So this is day 32 of the illegal war in Ukraine. And I have come across two videos that I'd like to share with you today that have really struck me in a very impactful way, in a positive way. And the links for these two videos are going to be in the description, in the paragraph that describes the video, so you can find them. And the first video was shared publicly about 12 days ago. And it shows this young 20-year-old violinist in a bunker in Ukraine somewhere, I didn't say where. And so he's playing with at least 100 musicians, violinists, all over the world. They're playing this Ukrainian folk song. And so the young man at some point, while the music is playing, he then says these words: "It's up to everyone in the world to say something about this conflict, every single one of us." And so I hope this young man knows that this is happening. And people around the world are doing what they can do with the capacity they have and the connections they have. And the second video that really struck me, I'm just so amazed it struck me at first, because this is a person who, before about, 10 days ago, a week ago, I knew him as a bodybuilder. I knew him as an actor. I knew about all of his mistakes because he's famous and wealthy. And I knew about him because he was the governor of California for a while. And I knew about him, sadly, because he really messed up his marriage. And so I kind of put him in a category of, a stranger, but verging into enemy, because there's a tinge of animosity there. But I've been working on my mind with that one, as I've mentioned before. And so I'm talking about Arnold Schwarzenegger. So why in the world would a nun talk about Arnold Schwarzenegger? In fact, years ago, decades ago, my friend and I were camping in British Columbia, and we were in the place that actually last year was heavily flooded. It was in the interior of BC, and it was raining so hard that the tent was just filling up with water. It was not fun. Camping, in my mind now, is really actually not fun most of the time, but it was really not fun then, so we got a motel in the interior of BC. And I wasn't a Buddhist at that time. So we turned on the television because there was one in the room. And there were two choices because it was a Saturday night in Canada. And one was Hockey Night in Canada, and the other one was an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. And so I'd never seen an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie before, and my friend and I started looking at it, and it was really violent. And so we lasted about, 2 minutes, and then the television was turned off. So that was my, information about Arnold until about a week ago. And I'm so thrilled now to see that my mind can change about somebody. Our minds can change because people are changing all the time. The big question as a spiritual practitioner is to say, do we let them change? Do we let our mind take in the change? Or have we got them cemented in a corner over there in the foundation of the Buddha Hall? So, some work to do. So because he's the former governor of California, because he has a fan base in Russia, because he has a very good friendship now with the retired Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman, who actually fact-checked the whole script, he produced a very touching video that is really worth watching. It's shot in very warm, light tones. His tone throughout the whole video is like you're sitting next to him in his room and he's talking to you as a dear friend. There's no pretense. There's no acting going on that I could see. He really wanted to deliver a message not only to the Ukrainian people, but to the Russian people who he's had a relationship with for decades, and to the Russian soldiers. So I have a script today, sorry about that, because I want to pull out exact quotes from what he said because they're just so striking. So he starts the video by saying that they're going to send this out to various channels to reach his dear Russian friends and the Russian soldiers. And he says the whole point of this is to let you know about the terrible things being kept from you that you should know about. So what's the definition of a good friend? A good friend tells you how it is, regardless of how hard it is to hear about our person or the situation we're in. That's a definition of a good friend. And then he starts off the video by it's very skillful how he draws the listener in. So he starts off by relating the story of him being a 14-year-old boy, and one of his friends takes him to a world championship weightlifting competition, where this Russian fellow is the winner, the champion. And somehow another friend gets them backstage to meet this person, whose name is Yuri Petrovich Vlasov. So what he doesn't comment on is maybe how good looking this man is, or how strong he is, or the fact he almost crushes his boy's hand with his handshake. What he notes is how kind he is. He's kind to him and he smiles at him. That stands out to him. So that's the currency of human beings, kindness. He then received a photograph of this weightlifter that he put in his room above his bed. And his father saw it, and this ignited all kinds of arguments because his father, he very openly admits, his father was a Nazi. He fought with the Nazis in Russia, and so his father hated the Russians. He said, why can't you have a German hero or somebody else? Take that down. And he said, I'm not taking it down. And it stayed there. He said, I don't care what country he's from. He's my inspiration. So he traveled a lot to Russia for these bodybuilding competitions and eventually making movies. And so he has this huge fan base of Russian people. And many, many years later, he said he met Yuri, the world champion weightlifter, in another setting. Again, he said, he's so kind, he's so thoughtful, he's so giving. He's not talking about the other qualities that man has, but he identifies those. Now, doesn't that say something about Arnold Schwarzenegger? And then he went on to say, so now he's going to get into let's hit you with the powerful information. He says, I have nothing but respect and admiration for Russian people. And you need to know the truth about what's going on. And he said, you've been told that this whole war is to denazify Ukraine. And he said, what? How could you believe that? That's a lie. The president is a Jewish person. President Zelensky's father's 3 brothers were murdered by the Nazis. This is absolutely a lie. And then he says, this war was started by the Kremlin. This is not the Russian people's war. Then he goes on to say that 141 nations in the UN have voted that Russia is the aggressor in this. Only 4 countries in the world have voted with Russia. So he said this is a humanitarian crisis. And because of its brutality, the brutality that we're seeing every single day, Russia is now being isolated. Thousands of Russian soldiers are being killed every day. You're not being told this. And then he says, bombs are raining down on innocent people. The bombs are not hitting your enemies. They're hitting hospitals, they're hitting schools, they're hitting homes. You need to know this. And they're also lying to the Russian soldiers. And now he directly speaks to the Russian soldiers who are, young men. And he's saying, you're being told that you're going to fight Nazis. You're being told that the Ukrainian people will greet you like heroes. You're being told that you're going on exercises, not knowing you're going into a war. You're being told that you're going in to protect ethnic Russians in Ukraine. This is all a lie. And he said, my father, who fought with the Nazis, ate up the same lies of his government at that time. He was being told lies. And when he left Leningrad, he left broken. He was shot up. There was shrapnel in his body. He had a broken back. He was miserable for the rest of his life. He had incredible physical pain. And mostly the pain that he suffered from the most was the guilt from what he'd done in Russia. And he said to the soldiers, I don't want you to be broken like my father. Then he goes on and he poses one question to the Kremlin. He says, why are you sacrificing young men for your own ambitions? And then he goes back to the Russian soldiers and says, there's 11 million Russian people in the Ukraine. So every time you shoot a bullet, you're hitting a brother or a sister. Every time you drop a bomb, you're hitting schools, hospitals, homes. So then he says, help me spread the truth. Then he doesn't spend much time with Putin, and he says, you started this war, you're leading this war, you can end this war. So his final words are to the Russian people who are protesting, and he says to them, again in this very warm-hearted tone, which is consistent throughout the whole video. And he says to the people protesting, you are my heroes. You are my heroes because you are braving being jailed, being beaten, being ostracized, and who knows what else may happen to you. And you are the heart of Russia. So what's so skillful in this whole presentation that Arnold gives is that he's very careful to separate the Russian people from the people in the government who are making this illegal war in Ukraine. And so as spiritual practitioners, as Shantideva tells us all the time, and as our teachers tell us all the time, quote, there is no horrible person. We need to separate the person from the action. The action can be horrendous, and in this case is horrendous. Atrocities are happening every hour in Ukraine. And those people involved have the Buddha potential. The afflictions are adventitious, and those afflictions are not in the nature of the mind. And the seeds of negative karma are not in the nature of the mind. They can be purified. So thank you, Arnold Schwarzenegger, for helping me see my limitations and to see that an ordinary mind like mine can actually move beyond putting someone in concrete and seeing that they can change and be of benefit.